Okay, today's lesson is looking at converting percentages, fractions, and decimals. So we've spent a lot of time already talking about fractions and decimals. In fact, you should be able to convert between them quite easily. But this is the first time that we've started talking about percentages, which may be something that you've heard of before, generally in terms of sales in retail stores, 20% off, 50% off, those sorts of things, or getting 50% in a test, 27%, those sorts of things. So the key thing is, what is a percentage? A percentage is basically a number out of 100. So it's basically presented in a way that is a bit more palatable for people. There is no reason why percentages could not be left as decimals to do calculations and all those things. But what is difficult to say all the time is 0.229. It's much easier to say 29% or 0.8563, which is 85.63%. So what we have here is a pie graph. It's been divided up into 100 sections, and that pie, the green part of the pie, represents a percentage of the bigger amount. So this is 10%. Okay, because it's as a fraction, we say it's 10 out of 100. But as a percentage, we would say 10%. And the percentage sign is an interesting one. You'll notice that it's made up of a stick and two circles. Well, so is 100. So that is basically arranged. And also, we've talked about before that that line could be representing divide. So percentage is just a number out of 100 or divided by 100. So, and the key thing we should always know is that a sum of percentage, or the bigger group, should add up to 100. So if we know that the chart, the green part of the chart is 10%, it means that 90% is not coloured. So it's always that complement to the area, to the first percentage we've got. And also, if something like a fraction's out of 242, we can create that into a percentage where it's out of 100, or a number that's out of 100, which is, again, a number we can compare. So fractions, decimals, percentages are all pretty linked because they are actually representing the same thing. So first of all, if we think about what the graph we've got here, what fraction is red? So if we think about the numerator, there's 3 shaded in areas out of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, out of 10 segments. So what does that mean about the percentage? Well, the percentage is 30%, because if there's 10 sections, then each of those represent another 10 sections to get our 100. So that would be 30 out of 100, which means that our percentage is 30. Now, what links these two together is the third part, looking at the decimal. Well, what is 3 over 10 as a decimal? On our calculator, we can work that out to be 0.3. And again, to go back, we can go through the decimal as well. So all 3 are linked together, and they are representing the same thing. Depending on what we want to do with the value, we'll present it as a fraction, a decimal, or a percentage. So these are some key ones that you should remember. So looking at 10% is 0.1, and you can kind of see how they're linked already. 25%, 0.25 is a quarter, and so on and so on. But they're the ones you should know without even having to calculate. but if you do, then that's not an issue as well. So the big question is, if I have a fraction and I want a percentage, what do I do? So the key thing, converting a decimal to a percentage, is that you must multiply the decimal by 100. So if you have 0.345 as a decimal and you want it as a percentage, just times it by 100. So it becomes 34.5%. Likewise, the easiest way to convert a fraction to a percentage is convert it to a decimal, which we already know how to do using our calculator, and then we multiply that decimal by 100. So that gives us our answer. So we need to write 7 out of 11 as a percentage. So I'm going to use the emulator. Remember, this is using the ABC button rather than anything else. So we can go to menu, run, and I want to go 7 ABC 11, and then that gives us our decimal, but I can leave it as 7 out of 11, and then I just times that by 100. And what that does is, let's try that again. So 7 ABC 11 equals times 100, and I can change that into a decimal by doing that. So it's 63.633, or 63.64%, rounded to 2 decimal places. So the other thing is working the other way. If I have a percentage and I need a decimal, well, if I multiplied by 100 before to get my percentage, then I just divide by 100. And likewise, if I'm going to take a percentage and get it into turn it into a fraction, then I can do the same as before. Divide by 100 to make it a decimal, then use the decimal as a fraction. So again, getting our calculator, is I want to convert 12.5%, so 12.5%, so 12.5 divided by 100 gives me a decimal. I press F to D and it goes to 1/8. So if we're using the other Casio calculator, SD instead of FD, and that gives us our answer of 1/8, which is what we've got. So this graphic sort of summarizes how to get from one thing to another. So here we've got 42 over 100, 0.42, and 42 for percentages. They're all the same thing. So to go for a fraction, press SD on your calculator, or FD if you're using the emulator, times by 100. We've got it. And if we're going the other way, percentage, divide by 100, and then press SD if we need to. So using that diagram, what I want you to have a go at is completing this table. So copy the table onto a sheet of paper, pause the video, and have a go at filling in the gaps. As an example, 0.19, if I want to get that as a fraction, then I just have to use the SD button on my calculator, so going decimal to fraction. If I want the percentage, I'm just going to have to times by 100. So pause the video now and fill in the answers. Okay, hopefully you gave that a go. Here are the answers. So the only one we had to round this one because it didn't fit. It doesn't. It's a reoccurring sorry, it's not a terminating decimal. So mark that, and then there's a worksheet to complete in the lesson page of the OneNote.